a registered Republican? Oh, now I love her ad. You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans.
About the ad, that it's being racist.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color.
Of course I killed them. I just aimed, shot, and killed those little creeps myself.
New faster killing Black Flag ant and roach killer kills with an exterminator-proven ingredient.
Their kind deserve to die.
Black Flag.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney, Casper Keynes.
Woke is dead. Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ad campaign is being promoted and retweeted by the White House, and Dunkin' Donuts also tried its hand at an ad campaign that is very genetics coded for some reason.
Look, I didn't ask to be the king of summer. It just kind of happened. This tan? Genetics.
There's literally no reason for Dunkin' Donuts to discuss genetics, and it really just seems like these billion-dollar companies are getting involved in rage baiting at this point, and it's so insane to see this development. Regardless, if you really aren't online, all of this sounds like gibberish to you, but as somebody who really doesn't have any life currently and spends way too much time on the internet, join me as we deep dive into the entire Sydney Sweeney drama and also discuss this trend that's been going on online about openly defending racism and just overall the normalization of racist rhetoric that we've seen that's led to massive changes in pop culture and I think what's just seen as acceptable overall in society. But before we got into all of that, which is going to be a lot, I just wanted to thank you all again so much for the love and support. When I put out that poll asking what you all wanted to see, I did not expect that many of you guys to reply. Thank you so much for replying to the poll, and thank you for bearing with me as I had some other scheduling conflicts last week. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to see more content that's similar to this, more deep dives, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps to support the channel. First, I think it's really important to give context on why so many people are upset about this whole situation, why so many people are talking about this whole situation in the first place. So American Eagle is in a very interesting position brand-wise. It's one of those stores that I think you see in the mall or other places and you kind of walk around inside of it for a bit and then literally see that every single pair of jeans, every single article of clothing is at least $50 and you turn around and leave the store. It's, I think, a brand that definitely has recognition somewhat, but I don't actively see people being like, oh my gosh, want to go to American Eagle today? And this level and place that they're in currently, especially as the economy worsens and worsens, has put them in a interesting position, at least before this campaign. An article by the Associated Press covered the backslides in sales that they've been seeing. American Eagle said late Tuesday that it expects first quarter revenue to slide 5% or more than $1 billion, the article stated. And then it also included excerpts from what the CEO was talking about, saying that the CEO said, quote, merchandising strategies did not drive the results we anticipated, leading to higher promotions and excess inventory. And true to his word, it does seem like a new promotion was going to be on the horizon for American Eagle. And this campaign, I think, seemingly tried to target Gen Z, which is interesting. This advertisement would feature Sydney Sweeney, a person whose star really shone, I think, following her role as Cassie in Euphoria. And trust me, we're gonna dive into her mess a bit later on. But on July 23rd, American Eagle officially began the ad campaign with Sydney Sweeney, with the concept being that Sydney Sweeney has great genes. It's supposed to be some sort of pun, and a lot of people have noted the callbacks to a campaign with Brooke Shields when Brooke Shields was 15 years old that was very intensely sexualized and very intensely exploitative. So just a very interesting campaign. They also, I believe, attached a fundraiser to this campaign, which is aimed at preventing domestic violence. Just a quick correction here. The campaign was actually focused on donating basically profits from the Sydney Sweeney jeans that they designed to a mental health crisis helpline. I think the point still stands because a lot of people who are suffering from mental health crisis are people of color, and a lot of trauma and a lot of baggage resulting in these type of mental health crisis still result from this form of bullying, this form of othering that a lot of people of color feel. So I think it's still very interesting to take this ad campaign that is very much reinforcing these ideals of white beauty standards and then sitting here and hiding behind the fact that you are going to donate a very, very small portion of your corporate profits to a cause that is inarguably good, right? But I really hate how these corporations are able to continuously whitewash any of their bad actions by just giving like a penny to the cause. Because if you look at the profits of a company like American Eagle, this is like you giving like a penny to a charity. Let's be so real. So yeah, no, I don't think this campaign and this donation hides them from criticism. I'm glad they're at least feigning to do this. I'm glad that companies are continuing to at least pretend to care, but I want to emphasize again that I don't think that this is somehow going to get them out of this, and I don't think that this should be an excuse. These companies are doing backflips to try to pretend like they care about these issues when they in reality don't. And American Eagle is a company that I think tries to have its pulse on these trends, but is just a little bit like, they're just a little bit too late every time. There's something off every time they do these little ad campaigns. But let's just watch this just to see how bad this is.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
And yeah, this ad campaign was not exactly loved by a lot of people. Given the current political climate where hate speech is being normalized, where politicians are openly excusing or even trying to appeal directly or whistleblow to white supremacist beliefs and ideology, I don't think it's exactly the best time to be making ads that are emphasizing the amazing genetics of blue-eyed, blonde-haired people. And just for context, there's historically been this ideal that blue-eyed, blonde-haired white people are some type of superior race, some type of Aryan superior race. This has been a big discussion that's been going on here. A lot of people calling this out because not only did the Sydney Sweeney ad kind of have a model or a person, celebrity who is blonde-haired and blue-eyed talk about their genetics in a way that I think people found to be very odd. But I also think that this advertisement campaign, even without all this, had it not had the controversy behind it, had it not had this overwhelming cultural blowback, I think this advertisement campaign would be completely unremarkable. And I think it's kind of interesting to see how brands are starting to rely on Ragebait as a marketing technique. American Eagle, in my opinion, knew that this was going to be something that was going to drive controversy, was going to make people discuss them. Regardless of whether it was going to be talking about how Sydney Sweeney has great genes, which I don't know if well, let's be honest. There had to be someone in that corporate boardroom who said, this is a possibility that this is going to be interpreted as racist. And, well, lo and behold, they didn't care. Even if it wasn't that, there's also the fact that this is paying homage to an advertisement campaign, which was done by 15-year-old Brooke Shields back in the 80s, which still would drive controversy. So I think these brands are really starting to dive into Ragebait, which is something that for some reason has become a recurring thing on my channel. Ragebait is, in essence, people doing things, or now brands doing things that they know are going to get a negative response in order to garner attention, in order to drive controversy. And it was definitely an interesting choice by American Eagle, I think, because it did, in a way, garner attention. But I don't think it drove attention from the demographics that they were actually aiming to get to shop there. Yes, of course, there are going to be a few people who are like, oh my gosh, I love American Eagle now, and we'll see that. But I do think, like, most of the people that I'm seeing, like, oh, I love American Eagle, blah, 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 are like Gen Xers or like people in their 40s, 50s. Like, they seem to be trying to appeal to Gen Z, who are more likely to buy into these $50 jeans or go to this store that is supposedly trendy, that is being endorsed by famous Euphoria star Sydney Sweeney. So in that way, I think they alienated a lot of Gen Z. But again, Gen Z is a generation that is not, and I know I said I don't like these generational kind of generalizations, but I think that Gen Z overall is a generation that's very divided. We saw that deep divide in the 2024 presidential election, where back in 2020, people were talking about, oh, Gen Z is going to be the generation to save us. Oh, Gen Z this, oh, Gen Z that. We're all on the same page. We all support Black Lives Matter. We all whatever. Clearly, that was not true. Clearly, that was a case of people being in their own bubbles on social media, and I think that phenomenon has gotten worse, where there's like basically two internets. If you go on the side of the internet that is anti this advertisement, you are going to see people talk about how racist it is. You're going to see people talk about how disgusting this advertising campaign is. But if you're on the other side of the internet, this advertisement campaign is a brash and bold move by a corporation. It's toppling wokeness. It's just ending wokeness all around. They're just so mad that a white woman is doing an advertisement. And this is not the first time that companies have relied on this type of rage bait marketing or undertones of racism marketing, in my opinion. You could see this in this Nivea. I don't really care because the company did this disgusting ad campaign, so not buying their lotion anymore. But I found this TikTok by Caleb Phobic to be interesting because it showed parallels to past campaigns that were also very openly white supremacist, including this advertisement campaign by the brand Nivea, where they specifically made an ad that stated, quote, "White is purity." That's audible gas material. That is openly just like, who in the boardroom, who in the world was like, oh yeah, white is purity, that's a great ad campaign. Let's put that out to the masses. Let's push that ad campaign out.
Oh hey, you caught me applying Nivea's lotion on my pale, pale, pale skin. It's really all in the genetics of it all. And that's what I love about Nivea. It works on pale, pale, pale skin. Only on pale, pale, pale skin. Nivea. It's all in the genome.
But regardless, I did find a really great blog article that covered this entire situation, and it was written by Dylan Parker and Gwen Wright. So if you're seeing this, hope you know that people are still reading your work in 2024. But they wrote, quote, "Although this advertisement campaign is flagrant and offensive, it shouldn't come across as shocking or unprecedented when contextualized in its cultural setting." They continue writing that the globalization of Western standards of attractiveness is a potent manifestation of the ethnocentric, colonialist antics that have defined the culture's evolution and warped its self-perception. And then they ultimately conclude that, quote, "It can be fully characterized as yet another exemplification of our culture's prejudiced tendencies." And I think that this is something that's also important to discuss and also important to remember as we discuss this advertisement. The fact that the Western beauty ideal has so long been expressed as being white, that being black or a person of color or different in any way has so long been something that people get bullied over, been something that people attack. And I think it's also interesting how we see this manifest in different ways. Like, for example, the characterization of big lips or full lips that black people possess. Or I don't know if y'all have been on TikTok a lot, but I've been seeing constantly people unhappy with their natural noses, people saying that wide noses and like noses that are a little bit bigger are uglier. This ideal of like a kind of, I don't know how to describe it, they describe it as like a sloped nose. And I've seen so many like noses that show ethnic features just be absolutely obliterated. And that is because the beauty ideal for some reason for so long, and even though these companies pretended like they changed it in 2020, they went right back, honestly. But the ideal has been basically being white, being beautiful. There's so many products that are designed around whiteness or purity. And I think this article was interesting in that it emphasized that this is spread beyond the West. This ideal has spread to places where attaining this ideal is impossible. You can literally see advertisements for bleaching creams across the world as if you're darker skinned, you're seen as dirtier or poorer, you're seen as a laborer. And at the same token, there's people who are white and literally go to these tanning booths where they could literally be at risk of things like skin cancer and sit there and tan for hours at a time in order to look a little bit tanner, because being tan in some countries in the West is seen as, oh, you have the luxury of being able to go outside. Oh, you're an outdoorsy person. You're really adventurous. You go outside enough to be tanned, which is like very interesting because, well, it's being projected to a lot of these countries that white is the ideal. At the same time, in these countries where white is supposedly this ideal, a lot of black features and a lot of ethnic features are being co-opted as beauty standards. Black people are so often told that their features are ugly, that their skin tone is something to be ashamed of. But I mean, can we literally look and see how many black features have basically become trends? For example, this quote-unquote BBL trend to emulate the curvier bodies of people of color. Or the obsession in the 2010s with fuller lips, getting lip injections to have fuller lips, an obsession with the proximity to blackness, to the point where Kim Kardashian literally wanted to put braids on her head, and the whole entire Kardashian family was getting with basically every rapper in the vicinity. And I think this TikTok showcases this dichotomy very well, because while black people and people of color are told that their ethnic features are something to be ashamed of, for a lot of white people, it's seen as something that makes them different. It's seen as something that, oh, that's cool, that's rebellious for me to, put these braids in my head. It's rebellious for me to sit here and get lip filler, or maybe be in proximity to these people who my parents wouldn't like me to be around.
Your white skin is so beautiful. Why do you go to the beach and burn yourself to a crisp trying to get brown if it's so wonderful to be white? And if you love your thin lips, why are you going to the doctor getting collagen injected and telling me my lips are too big? Don't, that's my thing. That trips me out whenever, white girls come to me, oh, your butt is so big. And it's like, well, why do you go get on that stair stepper at Holiday Health Spa trying to get your butt as big as mine? And being white is so wonderful. I don't understand why all these white teenagers don't stay white.
So I think that dichotomy is funny, but I think it's also been whiplash for a lot of people to see this return to the norm, if that makes sense, with companies kind of releasing these ads with very weird and disgusting undertones. I think it's put a lot of people into a sort of shock, because literally look back a few years ago and literally being black was all the rage. Oh, I want to get a BBL. Oh, I want to get lip filler. Oh, I want to basically, aka, oh, I want to look black. Oh, I want to get these braids in my head. And I think it's interesting to see what the people who are against this ad are saying. I think it's even more telling to see what the people who are very behind this advertisement campaign are saying, what their discourse is like, because it's a glimpse into, I think, a world that genuinely concerns me. We have to talk about wokeness and anti-wokeness in order to dive deeper into this entire messed up world or whatever. But basically, to explain what the term means and what it's become, wokeness was a term that's coined by black people originally. It's a part of African American vernacular English. Basically, language that spread throughout black communities. Black people will create their own words, their own catchphrases. And so often these catchphrases, these words are co-opted into wider culture. And anytime a black person says, oh yeah, this used to be an AAVE word. Oh yeah, like black people created this word. It's like, oh no, you didn't. Now it's internet slang. This is Gen Z slang. Remember when people took edges and they said, no, these are sticky bangs now. Interesting. That's what I'm talking about here. But basically, the term was coined by black people to describe awareness to societal or racial injustice. But of course, it was eventually co-opted by white activists who are generally more progressive. Not necessarily, I don't think, in a negative way. Like, when I say people appropriate black culture, I don't think it's necessarily an inherent negative. People can disagree with me, but I think that it is generally out of fascination. But unfortunately, this co-opting kind of led this word to be more vulnerable, I think. A lot of people were describing themselves as woke, using the word to describe somewhat what it originally meant, kind of this general idea that they were more aware to injustices. But then the other co-opting and the further evolution of this word occurred, where conservatives discovered this word and I think really just butchered it into pieces. Anything that is too intellectual, or anything that discusses any of America's wrongdoings or America's shaky past, or just racism in general, is suddenly too woke. It's too anti-American. And the supporters of this entire campaign really seem to subscribe to this idea that this campaign is somehow bringing beauty back, and that they are so tired of wokeness taking over advertising, aka there were too many black people that were on their screens, and now they're happy that it's returning to what it used to be, the good old days. And a lot of this is, I think, based off of a false nostalgia. And an interesting analysis of this, I think, is the fact that government policy has changed so much under these past few, like, people, I think, have an attachment to government policy that was more what they would describe as socialist, that cared more, that had a more robust welfare system where wages and productivity were more closely aligned. And that is a world that has been sadly and continuously decomposing and picked apart by, I think, both political parties. Like, that is a tough pill to swallow, but the nostalgia that a lot of these people are experiencing, this idea that, oh yeah, you could be 30 and own a home, all of this stuff ultimately goes back to continuously decreasing taxes on the rich, continuously creating these tax breaks, and a continued degradation of the welfare system, this continued attack on systems that people rely on, basically stating that, oh yeah, these people are so lazy, there's so many welfare bums that we have to cut welfare and we have to create more of these requirements to use welfare. As all these systems have degraded, people's quality of life has gotten worse and worse. And a lot of people are associating this with the rising pattern of wokeness for some reason, or they're led to believe by these politicians that wokeness is the problem, that this awareness of societal injustice is destroying America. It's dividing us. It's tearing up. These woke activists just want us to do too much. We have to go back to the old ways, and then it'll all just fall into place and we'll all be great again, which is, well, I don't think we will, actually. But also, what I find funny about this nostalgia for these bygone eras is that even if you go back into these eras, Black culture, Black art, all of these things, Black people were still so popular and still very important in these eras. So I think it's very funny that these people act like Black people didn't exist during these times, when in reality, they were major cultural players. Of course, oppressed, deeply oppressed, and facing deep and heavy inequality, as the remnants still show today. When segregation ended and the laws were put on the books, it didn't just instantly make things equal, which I think is something that a lot of people forget. But regardless, literally in the 20s through like 50s, jazz and Black art dominated. And then like going further, blues music was so revered that it was emulated constantly. Elvis Presley, someone who really won a lot of the decades that these people seem to want to go back to 1965, like that girl said. Elvis idolized Black artists to the point where he copied them and sometimes didn't exactly give them credit for their work. And do I even have to say anything about hip hop and rap's cultural impact, which has literally extended over 4 decades? It's literally so funny to me to see people spread this idea that Black people didn't exist. But, you know, let's just see some insane takes from people who support this campaign, because I think that's interesting content. Let's see. Like, okay, she's scorching hot, but I legit love this ad series, unapologizing, recognizing, and highlighting beauty after a decade of celebrating ugly and different. The tone is great, leading into knowingly hot with simple wordplays about jeans and jeans. It's lighthearted, goofy, and simple, while still making a strong statement about the celebration of true beauty. 11 out of 10. Good job, American Eagle. All right, try not to slobber all over the screen while you're writing this, dude, because this sounds like you're seriously, I don't know. What really leapt out to me as I read this, and what I think is really important to note here, is this conflation of different and ugly here. That it just came out to me. I'm sorry. That's the first thing I saw. They tried so hard to hide their equivocation of difference and diversity with ugliness and hideousness, which, let's be honest, isn't true, because don't even get it twisted, during the supposed decade, which I think was only a couple years, let's be real, when companies at least pretended to care about equity and social justice, people who weren't considered conventionally attractive were not given a spot. They were not selected. They really only seemed to select the most conventionally attractive people of color, and when they didn't, oh God, let them put out an ad campaign with a girl who is slightly overweight. Let them put out an ad campaign with somebody who maybe has acne on their face, because it would be all over Twitter. People would be complaining back and forth, yelling, screaming under the TV screens, oh, this is too woke, oh, blah, 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 which is really interesting. Because my thing with these brands is that people exist who look like this. People exist who have acne. People exist who are bigger. People exist who may not be conventionally attractive. In fact, I think most people probably don't fit into the very strict standards that being conventionally attractive is held under. If you just pulled out a room of American people, random sample, are not going to be conventionally attractive. I'm so sorry that the ad you had to see on TV featured somebody who looks like they could be seen at a Walmart. Maybe it's because the brand is actually trying to sell things to American people who look like this. Crazy notion, but I think this is just very thinly veiled racism, and it's a continued perpetuation of this notion that Black people and people of color are so ugly, which I think is truly evil, because it really leads to the cycle of self-hatred and people who end up growing up and hating their own natural features, their natural born features, and trying to change themselves. But now we also have to go to Instagram, because there are a lot of comments on the Instagram posts that I saw and that I was like, this is deranged. But I think it also just shows a general vibe of what people are saying in this new anti-woke crusade. Love this ad. Liberals can cry harder. Make American Eagle cool again. Imagine being mad about this. Everybody mad has pronouns on their bio. Listen, this next comment, we're gonna scroll back to this next comment, because that comment, I can't. Make models beautiful again. I'll be buying American Eagle products for the first time in a decade. I don't get the outrage. Maybe touch some grass. Fire, fire, bringing women back. Can someone explain the drama here? We're watching the death of woke culture in real time, and I'm here for it. Heart, US. Honestly, thrilled not to see anyone with purple hair or a man dressed as a woman. Go Sydney. I feel like I'm living in a separate world because the world that I'm in, this advertisement has very racist undertones. I don't like the fact that it reaches into eugenics, this idea behind eugenics, this idea that somehow people with blonde hair and blue eyes are more beautiful or more attractive than people who look like me. These are all just traits that are expressed in a different way on our bodies. Like, nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with beauty. All of these things are societally crafted. But I think one thing that a lot of these comments showcase is this problem, this growing trend of anti-intellectualism. And I found this interesting, but one Reddit user wrote, quote, anyone else seeing a rise in anti-intellectualism? It's kind of worrying how such a thing is starting to grow. It's a trend throughout history that without logic or reasoning, people are able to be easily controlled. It's like a pipeline. By being able to ignore facts over your beliefs, you're susceptible to being controlled. And sadly, I really do have to agree that I think we're already in an era of anti-intellectualism. We're seeing officials be fired because of numbers that they released of like job reports being seen as unsavory, like a blatant disregards of important agencies like the Federal Aviation Association and NOAA, which are both very integral to our society. I think also a devaluing of education, this push to get people away from universities, also this push to make it less accessible to enter higher education, the decreasing of Pell Grants, that type of thing. And I honestly think this trend of making people feel guilty for thinking deeply about things or even examining the world around them is just really backwards and honestly scary to me. Anytime you bring up historical context, you're being the friend that's too woke. And it's like, no, I think we actually need to look at the historical precedent and the context for these type of events. A lot of things have been happening recently. We're dealing with a upsurge of racism and openly hateful rhetoric online. And I think it's being rationalized as legitimate political discussion. Literally scroll under any Twitter post and you'll see the most racist and the most vile things that you've ever seen in your life, literally alongside an ad for like Microsoft or some major company, because these companies apparently have no problems, no qualms with advertising on a site where people are openly having Klan rallies. I've constantly seen things, and especially like racialized comments. And then when people bring these things up, I think there's also this level of, I want to say like, ignorance, I feel like, is generous because it is really gaslighting behavior. People act like they can't see what's in front of them. People act like when somebody says the usual suspects under something, basically insinuating that black people do this thing or a certain ethnic group or a certain cultural group does this thing, it's not seen as racism. It's nothing, guys. And this extends further beyond black people because if you see anything about what people are talking about when it comes to South Asian people, because while a lot of people seem to be really obsessed with East Asian people, with Japan, with Korea, South Asian people are, I think, really discriminated against. Don't look up what people are saying about India. Don't look up what people are saying about a lot of other South Asian countries because it is so disgusting and so dehumanizing. I honestly, like, I don't know. That's a can of worms that needs to be opened, unpacked, and looked at because the way that I'm seeing people talk about India and like Indian people is so like rude and so disgusting and blatantly racist. And the scary thing about this entire thing is that there's so much money now in grifting and being blatantly racist. Like, do y'all remember that girl who literally made her whole thing that she said the N-word on TikTok and she was like, I don't care, I'm anti-woke, blah, blah, blah. And she actually got quite a following off of that. And then we can't help to forget Ollie London, who makes a full living grifting on Twitter. The woman in Minnesota who literally called an entire child, the N-word, is now a millionaire. And it's just utterly disturbing to see how these people are basically rewarded for their bad behavior, rewarded for pushing this disgusting rhetoric out. And don't get me started on the conservative response to Kanye West literally releasing a song that is titled Hail Hitler. I'm so sorry. That should have been removed from the sound waves. That should have been like a career-ending stunt. But instead, people acted like this song was amazing. This push against criticism, this push against censorship, literally just absolutely disgusting and absolutely scary to see the amount of people who are rationalizing this behavior, the amount of people who are still locked in and still defending this behavior, claiming that it's against, like, anything that these people see as anti-woke, there's no limit, there's no bar. Anybody, any person they see as anti-woke, it's immediately an ally. There's no vetting. There's no care or consideration for what this person has done. There's no care or consideration for the actions that this person has taken. They're immediately co-opted and taken in as an ally. And I think that is really disturbing because a lot of really disgusting people, I think, have found protection in this anti-woke culture. I'm gonna have to say allegedly here, but Russell Brand has been accused of things like sexual violence against people. And this person has successfully, in a way, tried to shift discussions regarding this alleged behavior into, oh, this is cancel culture. And now they have a wave of fans rushing to their defense. Half the time any major celebrity gets hit with like allegations, all of a sudden they're anti-woke and they don't care. And this is a massive cancel culture mob. So crazy and just really interesting to see how anti-wokeness has shifted into this thing that can be used to avoid and shirk accountability at any turn. But now we're going back to this comment because this one particular comment really irked me and really brought up some things that a lot of people have been discussing. They wrote, "I love this campaign, love the play on words. Sydney is perfect. I'm a Gen Xer and these remind me of the 1980s Brooke Shields Calvin Klein ads. Woke is over. Thanks for being brave enough to go back to advertising that works, not ads sucking up to wokeness." And you know the anti-woke ad that you just praised, that you just said, oh, I love this. This reminds me of blank. That advertisement was filmed by a 15-year-old who was brutally exploited by Hollywood and basically made to grow up at such a young age. Like, there is no bar. This is the type of stuff that these people will sit here and defend and sit here and say they want back. Y'all want to bring back child exploitation? That's weird. And shout out to Sassy Grilled Cheese, or aka Casey, who added me in this TikTok that really showed the connection between these two advertisements. Because at first I was like, why are they doing this jeans ad line, this genetics line? It seems to be a callback to the 1980s ad campaign, which I think should not be something that you call back to, that I think is something that's disturbing. And I do have to tell you guys something that honestly I don't know, because when I first filmed this video, that information wasn't out. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to believe any of that. But guess what? Sydney Sweeney, officially people have discovered that she is actually an actively registered Republican. In the state of Florida, no less. Yeah, the state with Alligator Alcatraz, the state with Ron DeSantis. She decided to hop on that bandwagon, even despite this ad campaign. I know that she is a very smart person, that she likely knew the connotations of this ad campaign, but I don't know, that just threw it away for me. Because, you know, let's talk amongst friends here. Let's talk together. If you told me that you're a Republican in 2025, you're getting a massive side eye from me, because I don't care. I'll still treat you like a human being. I'll still give you the basic pleasantries, but it's really an awful look being a part of the party that is continuously cutting Medicare and social support for thousands of Americans. If you want to associate yourself with the party of Trump in 2025, trust and believe I will be clutching my invisible purse anytime I see you around, because you clearly don't like my kind. But regardless, Sweeney didn't just get the support from millions of online anti-woke crusaders, but she also got a lovely dose of support from President Donald Trump. It's so over it. There's no coming back, Sydney. So Trump and the White House accounts made a litany of tweets and posts in support of her. And even in a direct interview, Trump basically said, oh, we're behind you, Sydney. They're really trying to get behind this, which I think is interesting.
If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic.
After Sydney Sweeney, it came out this weekend that she was a registered Republican. Any thoughts on that?
That who was?
Sydney Sweeney. She's like a very hot actress right now.
She's a registered Republican?
Yes.
Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Like, I'm sure this is really great for your career, Sydney. I'm sure this makes everybody want to work with you, especially the queer people and the people of color that you're going to have to work with in Hollywood. I'm just sure that's going to be going over great. And just a few final thoughts, because let's talk about how Sydney Sweeney, as we know her today, would literally not exist, would literally not have the same level of fame that she has if it wasn't for this wokeness that the party she decided to affiliate with is so constantly against. Euphoria is a show that literally features a lesbian drug addict who dates a trans woman, copious amounts of nudity, like the stuff that the party that you're supporting, the party that you're putting your feet down to support, that you're voting for, is literally beholden to interest groups and literally is so against all of the stuff in the show that you got famous off of. Like, sis, they don't want this stuff to air, period. We're literally seeing this in real time as well, because as we've seen this rise of conservatism, we've seen the rise of organizations that are actively trying to tamper down on what people can buy and what people can do. Like, NSFW games have been getting threatened by payment processors because these groups have been pressuring them. But honestly, what's really scary to me in this whole situation is that this is a profitable strategy for companies, at least right now, getting these shout outs from the president, whatever. And it just proves to me that a lot of these corporations don't really care about us at all, that they don't really care about the issues that they claim are so important to them. Because if you look back to 2020, you can literally see this statement from Aerie, which says that they care so much about Black lives, that they acknowledge systematic racism, that all of this stuff is so important to them that they're donating. But clearly we see when they think the tide shifted enough, they're going to go right back to their old ways. They don't really care. But that's honestly all for me for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I feel like this was a very opinionated video. If you're a Republican and you watch this, I feel like you might not like me anymore. But regardless, thank you so much for sticking with me throughout this last week. And trust, I will be back to my old schedule. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.